Hi everyone. I have read your strategic planning papers in Blackboard and have posted feedback for you in the rubrics. In general, these were great papers. I want you to understand that this is one of the more complex assignments. The skill at being able to effectively compare and contrast multiple articles requires a great deal of attention to detail, some finesse, and some really good writing skills, especially if you're trying to do it in a concise manner. So if you got feedback that maybe it wasn't where you thought it was, make sure you go back in and really think about the difference in writing a summary versus understanding the value of a compare and contrast within a paper. There's so much relevant information when we think about strategic planning and how that informs our practice, how that guides us as effective leaders. So it's an important concept. So I appreciate your time that you've spent on this. Some of the great insights that came. You guys had some wonderful ideas about what strategic planning should look like. One of your classmates wrote about strategic planning as the analogy that Suzette, your classmate, wrote was a cross-country trip with children. When I read this, I chuckled and I thought, no sane person would cross a country with children. But then I realized, yes, there are probably people that really like being trapped in a car with their children. So her thoughts about this were that the journey of healthcare strategic planning is like a cross-country trip with children. The parents must plan that something is going to happen along the way and that situations will arise that need to be prepared for. The children will get hurt or have mosquito bites, and the parents will need to have the items on hand to treat the issues before it becomes an infected mess. It is the same in healthcare entities. The healthcare directors, the parents, need to make sure that the facility, the child, is taken care of and has the items it needs when new issues come their way. In an example, Zika virus. It is the parents' responsibility to make sure that the child is prepared for whatever is coming their way and that they have the resources to go forward and be a confident part of society. This strategic planning is what is necessary for all healthcare organizations as well. I thought that was such a great insight. Crystal followed up with that with a great biblical reminder of Proverbs 24:17. And Crystal reminds us that this verse tells us to do your planning and prepare your fields before building your house. Planning ahead is a part of our daily lives. Just as this verse tells us, we must plan ahead in order to be successful in the future, no matter what it is that we're doing. And so often we are running around in crisis mode. We're stressed. There's so much going on that we forget to pause and make a plan. And if we develop a good plan and we think through the risks and the benefits and we sketch out our ideas, we're more likely to be successful and feel like we're more in control of the situation than if we're just that firefighting mode all day long. So I appreciate the reminder of what that should look like when we're honoring God's command for us to take the time to prepare and to plan before we start building an infrastructure on a base that maybe isn't solid. And we should certainly be thinking about that when it comes to our faith as well. So I appreciate those insights. So from an AP standpoint, one of the themes that I have seen is the error in how to handle 3 to 5 authors in an article. So if you find a reference that has 3 to 5 authors, when you cite it the first time, you cite all of the authors and then the date within the in-text citation. On the second time you cite it, you only cite the first author with at all. So it's ET space AL period. That is how you do it on the second time. Many students realize that they have to cite it the first time with all the authors, but forget to make the change in the following iterations of using multiple authors. So know that that's different than when you have 1 or 2 authors. I have not seen a whole lot of trouble with when there's 6 or more authors, because I think we're all tired and we think, yay, it's 6 authors. I only have to write the first one and et al. After it. I'm always delighted that way because that's a whole lot less writing. But just know that there's those variations, and it's always the 3 to 5 that seem students to have to struggle with. The other thing that I want you to be looking for is looking in your APA manual on page 62. It's bullet point 3.03. It gives you a snapshot snapshot, a little box about how to use the headings and what the heading formats should look like. First steps in this course are, can you use level heading 1 fairly effectively? As you move through the course, I'm going to want to see you using level 2 and 3 when it's appropriate for the length and complexity of your papers. Okay, so be sure that you take the time to go in, and I flagged this and I've made copies of it on page 62 of your book, of your APA manual. Know what that looks like. The Purdue OWL website. Also, you can Google the headings and you can get a snapshot of what they're supposed to look like there as well, and why you use different headings for different purposes. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about next week. Next week, you have your annotated bibliography. And folks, this is literally, it's a list of your citations with a full citation, and under it should be a summary of what you find in that article. About 50 words is normally pretty accurate. What's important for me when I'm looking through this, one of the first things I'm looking for are your sources scholarly? I'm going to highly encourage you to avoid using websites and textbooks. I want you in the literature. When we think about textbooks, we know that by the time a textbook is published, much of the content can be up to 3 years old. So we already know that a textbook has some dated information in it. So it's not always the most current new information. Websites you have to be very careful with, because while some of them have scholarly or relevant information, many of them are not peer-reviewed, they're not closely monitored, and the information is not always deemed as reliable. That does not mean that there isn't great information on the web, but you need to be careful. Having a few websites, there's nothing wrong with that. But if your reference list for your annotated bibliography is full of websites, you're going to hear from me that that really isn't a scholarly use of your resources. Get into the literature, get into your journal articles, and really look for new information, less than 5 years old, from peer-reviewed articles. The other thing I'm going to encourage you to do is, when you are reading your articles, if you're writing about a Christian nurse leader, make sure that you're using an analogy or using a population from an article that is relevant to what you're talking about. There's nothing wrong with going in to leadership genres of journal articles and looking at business leadership for guidance for what it means to be a leader. But make sure when you put it in your final paper that you explain how that article about a business leader is related to nurses in a healthcare setting. So make sure that you can make the connection between the topic and the population and the setting of the article you choose with what you're actually writing about. One of the mistakes I see new writers make is they are writing on a topic. Let's say it's crisis management in the United States. And what they do is they go and look up crisis management, and they find all these articles, and half of them are focused in third world countries. So it's very difficult to extrapolate the crisis management within a third world country to how the United States would handle a crisis management within the U.S. So make sure that when you're writing and you're researching that you're using apples and oranges. You're using apples and apples, not apples and oranges. So just a little tip. I think that's about it. If you guys have questions or concerns as you go through your feedback, I don't want you to hesitate to contact me and ask questions. Know that I'm here. I'm happy to talk about things. I'm happy to reread your paper if you have concerns or feel like maybe I've missed something. The idea is that you're putting the pieces together and you feel like all the dots are connecting. So if I can help you do that in any way, know that I'm here. Also, thank you so much for your grace and your patience. I typically try not to be this late giving you feedback in the week. But as I said last week, my Jonathan is now a active duty member of the U.S. Navy. He did his enlistment both on Tuesday. There was minimal crying and as little public embarrassment as possible. So he is, the only thing I know is he's in Great Lakes, and we got a call and said he was safe. So truly appreciate your patience with getting feedback, and your prayers and your support during this week. They have been felt. So I'm going to let you guys go. As you can see over my right shoulder, my puppy Madeline appears to be taking a nap, and I'm going to go rouse her and go play with her. It's been a long day of grading. Hope you guys are well. Take care.